welcome if you've just joined. We're going to be waiting for a few people to join the session, as with all of these online webinars. There's people jumping from meetings to meetings, so we'll give them a few minutes. For those of you that are on the call at the moment, you are on a session to talk about embedding the wow factor in your demonstrations, very much focusing on how embedded analytics can enable you to accelerate the opportunity within your own product and platforms by accelerating your own aspects around data visualization, reporting, machine learning, and we're going to talk about why that's important, how we go about doing that, and show you a little bit of the way in which we do that today. Obviously, this is a bit of a fireside chat, so Ken and me are side by side. Yes, we are in the office, which is amazing. So we're here in the UK, and things are opening back up again, which is fantastic. We are observing a bit of social distancing, but I'm not going to go too far away from you. The main format for today's session, I think we've got about half an hour with you, is we're going to have a bit of a Q&A discussion. So we're covering three areas. So talking about, what is the status of sort of data in the cloud and data analytics for our customers and our end users and organizations. What are the challenges that they're faced with? So a bit of a same as it ever was conversation. And we're going to have a chat about what matters to consumers of SaaS platforms when it comes to data. What do they need? What are they looking for? And then also what matters to providers of platforms and SaaS solutions from an embedded technology point of view, and what really data analytics solutions can be provided to enable that. So that's what we're going to do to start. So I can see that we've got a few people joining. So welcome to the call. My name is Zandra. I'm the CEO here at Panintelligence. Introduce yourself, Ken.
Hi, I'm Ken. I'm the CTO here at Panintelligence.
And yeah, you're on the webinar all to do with how to embed the wow factor in your SaaS platform, in your demonstrations, in whatever solution you're providing to your customers. I'm going to kick off with a question for you, Ken, if that's all right. And we're going to have a bit of Q&A, and then we'll dig into technology towards the sort of second half of the session. We've got about 30 minutes for you today. So you always say to me a phrase, and you've said it ever since we first started working together about 11, 12 years ago, I think, something like that now, was that we've been solving the same problem in business intelligence, same as it ever was for a long time. How's the migration to cloud and the use of cloud platforms helped or hindered that, and what's the real challenge for people?
Yeah, it's brought new challenges really to us all, I think. So as we've started to move our applications out to cloud, and I take ourselves as a small business as a really good example here. We have about 50 employees within our organization, and we have about 17 different systems in one way or other, and many of them are now absolutely cloud-based. So where we fought data silos, data access for many years, actually we don't hold that data physically on premise anymore. So we need other alternative methods of getting to that data. And that's where we work ourselves through partnership and using lots of providers out there who sort of address that problem. And data warehousing has become more and more important as we've gone forward. So as you say, same as it ever was. We different technology, different solutions, but it's obviously been kind of the same answer for, I think, 25 years I've worked in the world of business intelligence. So we now use tools to pull that data together, aggregate and combine it to give us the holistic view of the business. And it's something we do for ourselves. We call it the customer 360 view internally, because we can at any point in time pull up a customer, a prospect, have a look at it from a CRM point of view, and that to us means Salesforce. We can have a look at it from a support point of view, and that means Zendesk to us. We can have a look at it from an accounts point of view, and that means Xero to us. And all of these different systems, we're able to combine that data together. And by using our own product, because you're not allowed to say eat your own dog food anymore, you have to drink your own champagne. We use our own products to combine that into a single platform. And without it, it would be hard to onboard staff, because we'd have to teach them these 17 different systems. Actually, we can introduce them to the data in one single platform, one place to go and view and link and dial out. So they kind of use it as the glue, if you like, of the whole product. And also, it just means that as we add new systems, we can bring that data in and make sure that we actually get the data working. So we spend a lot of time, like a lot of you will, in putting data into these systems. And you tend to find that people need to know why they're spending time doing data entry. Because after a sales call, when you're all buzzing and had a great time, going into Salesforce and updating it isn't the most exciting aspect of people's jobs, if we're honest. But when they see the fact that this data combines and actually allows us to do far more for that customer or prospect, then that's when they see the value of them doing it. I think this is the advice. I'm going to give you very long answers to.
It's fine. I'm going to interrupt now because not that wasn't a good answer, but I'm just listening and thinking that puts a lot of responsibility on organisations to kind of solve the problem of distributed data in SaaS platforms. And I'm just wondering, what can SaaS vendors do to take some of that pain away? Because yes, we as organisations can sort of bring that data together to give it a single view. But what if we don't have a lot of people or skills in our organisations to do that? What should the SaaS vendors? You've mentioned Salesforce, Xero, and obviously there's lots of SaaS tools that people are using across different functions. How could they be making that easier for people in those operational areas to do what they need to do on a day-to-day basis? Because that's the frustration, isn't it? People are sort of ripping data out of cloud systems to put it somewhere else because it's too hard in the platform. Would that be fair to say?
No, absolutely. And it brings another couple of challenges with it really as well. So what we found with a lot of our partners is they're wanting to add value and add additional value to the customers, and they're wanting to do that through the data that they hold on that customer's behalf, but also allow that simple access. So that's where people aren't wanting to have a business intelligence tool separate from the application. They want their application truly enriched, and that's where embedded analytics within it can become really important. And it solves two really big problems for customers. One, you tend to find that they are ripping the data out and they're doing lots of Excel, lots of manipulation and lots of manual work to get that going for themselves. But also it gives you as the SaaS vendor a problem. So we quite often see a lot of our partners having problems with batch processing overnight, where suddenly they've got a lot of people pulling daily refreshers, and you'll surface the data through an API typically. The person who's going to pull that data doesn't necessarily care or is too concerned about your optimization or performance of your system. So it's a bit like a smash and grab. They'll write a bit of Python or use a bit of a scripting language to go and pull against the API. And guess what? If it works first time, they might think they're going to go back and optimize that at some point, but they probably won't. They'll just do that. And you might put gateways or thresholds in front of that, but people are always going to try and work ways around that. And the other really big issue with that as well is data security. So, guess what? That data ends up in the community in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. The last thing they're going to point is at themselves and saying, we pulled that data, we lost it in an Excel spreadsheet. They'll point the finger directly at you as the vendor and say, how did this data get out here? And probably act all surprised and everything else. But
so how do SaaS vendors then take their customers on a journey of not feeling like they need to smash and grab the data out and removing some of those kind of data leakages, data security challenges? What do they need to be doing in their applications to enhance that customer experience, that they do it inside platform and not outside platform? What are the things that are important, you think, to the customer for them to stop doing that?
I think it's to make it simple. And that's really the SaaS journey that we've all gone on. So the other thing that's happened as we've moved to cloud and SaaS providers, like ourselves and like yourselves, have increased. We've had to make the user experience a lot easier, a lot simpler. People don't want to have to go on a 4-day training course or read a manual to use products. They want to drop in and intuitively be able to pick those up and use them. And actually, by taking the journey of bringing the business intelligence directly within the cloud, you can do that. But you also have the benefit of being able to provide the added value. So enriching that data, showing people how and where they sit compared to other prospects, other people who use the platform. So it's really about making it simple. And by making it simple, you reach the proper audience. So a lot of traditional business intelligence solutions have involved technical teams. And actually, when you bring the tech guys in, and I say this apologetically because I am a CTO, so I spend a lot of time with tech teams. We're not the best people at answering these questions because we don't necessarily understand the context of the data. Whereas if you show somebody whose job that is, who has that domain expertise, one little number, one little chart, one bit of information can make them change the way or their practices. They can see the real value to it. So simple, keeping it simple for people.
And it sounds like what you're saying is this is not just about keeping it simple for the software vendors to be able to deploy something like this. Obviously that's a given, but actually every user of the SaaS platform should be able to self-serve, get what they need in the way of data insights without having to sort of take it out and play with it in a spreadsheet, really, which is what people are doing. So what does that mean from what they need to be able to do? Is this just about more self-service from being able to build things? Is it about just what they're doing inside the platform, or is it other things? Because I know that I hear very often from SaaS vendors that are going on this journey that they've built something like static dashboards. They've got some list-based reports that people can apply some filters to, and it gives them some functionality to be able to configure to a point, but really they're just applying filters to an existing set of reports and charts. But the customer actually needs to take the next step, which is much more making it relevant to their context. But anybody, is that what you're?
Yeah. So we often talk about business intelligence being the mushy bendable bit. So you'll have lots of different companies out there that use your platforms, and their businesses will actually feel very, very different from each other. So even if we go into, someone in financial services or someone in healthcare or someone in retail, you'd think that they do the same thing. And fundamentally, on the surface, they might seem to do the same thing, but actually their business practices and processes are very different. So you find that the business intelligence layer becomes this gooey, wobbly piece that they need to be able to manipulate to make your systems surface in the way that they talk about data, that they use data, and they follow their own business processes. So it has to be flexible.
So it can be almost the customizable part of your SaaS platform to make it context relevant to their businesses. So in a way, you can have a lot of standardization in your SaaS platform, but allow the embedded analytics layer to be the customizable piece that can allow for that can give them that sense of flexibility from an end user's point of view. And it can be that, right? And we can be that, And I think there's something about it not just being about stuff that you do inside platform. Actually, the platform should be able to let you know when things are happening. And I think the reporting piece is something that's really misunderstood, actually. When we talk about data and analytics and business intelligence, people think real-time dashboards. But actually, getting a notification of something changing and alerts and exceptions, or even just a report that's formatted, is as valuable and will still be as valuable.
Absolutely.
And they miss that a lot, don't they, in the SaaS platforms? It's still, we're assuming that they're always going to be in the platform doing things, but actually sometimes people need to be reminded to go back in. Does that make sense?
That's where a lot of the legacy exists. And again, that comes back to these legacy platforms aren't designed to work in a SaaS way. So you go back to people pulling and churning data out into their own applications. And Excel is the best bit of software that's ever been written. Absolutely, but it's the most misused piece of software that's ever been written. And most businesses today still struggle with very highly paid members of staff churning, rewriting, putting data in, redoing formulas in Excel. So it takes up a lot of their time, where they're much better served by having that data presented in a way that they can consume it straight away, or actually be able to share that with other people as well. So when we talk about data silos, sometimes the data prep that you've done can't be shared with people, or isn't easily shared or communicated with people. And that's really what we're trying to do is when I look at a number, I want the rest of the team to be seeing that same number, understanding it, and taking the same courses of action, or at least starting the conversations that we need to drive ourselves a bit better. But we find, even today, I grew up on things like Crystal Reports, Business Objects, Cognos. They're still really prevalent, and they're really prevalent because they still solve a job that I think those of us in the BI community turned our back on a little bit. So the rush to real-time dashboards. Dashboarding isn't great. You won't ever hear me say anything against dashboarding, obviously, but actually people still need alerting. They don't want to have to go and play this game that we think is brilliant, this game of hide and seek, so I can drill and dice and slice. Wow, isn't that fun? No, tell me what's going on. And they want a report sometimes delivered on a 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, and there's nothing wrong with that. So being able to build and construct those elements in one simple consumable way becomes really, really important.
Yeah, so that kind of being told when to go and look or where to start looking by having an exception report or a something that is driven by a threshold or even by a prediction to alert people to say, go and look now because something's changed that we know you care about, is driving people back into the SaaS platform to go and investigate, as opposed to relying on them going in periodically to just, especially those people that are making the decisions that might not be updating the data, but letting them know when there's things that they really care about and actually using it as an alerting engine, not just a visualization engine, which is something we can show you, and we will. And the intention really is to just spend a few more minutes talking about, what matters to you as SaaS vendors now. Because, okay, we understand there's a challenge for customers. And we understand that there's things that they need to get them out of this cycle of taking data out. But there's also, what do you need as SaaS vendors really to make this work inside your technology and to give you confidence that this is going to be a secure, scalable, and easy to use solution to some of your kind of roadmap items around data and data analytics. So we'll talk about that for a second, then we're going to show you. So please stay on, because we will show you exactly how it works and how easy this is to kind of build an insight and actually get this ready for you to embed within your application. There's three kind of buckets of stuff that we talk about. The first is that customer experience. So making it really self-service and easy for them to do what they need in platform, which means that they don't do stuff outside platform. We've talked a little bit about that and we'll show you that. The other two we're spending a few minutes on. So how easy is it to deploy us within your infrastructure? And one of the things that we do that make that super simple but deeply integrated, so that you've got confidence that people are only seeing what you want them to see, and that kind of architecture is light, scalable. So we'll talk about that. The other thing is how, as Panintelligence embedded within a SaaS vendor's stack, do we help you to drive additional value beyond the basics, the utility, the getting a dashboard that is more configurable, having a report that tells you something that you go back into? How do you create more value around things like prediction and looking at the whole data set that you're sat on and providing an insight to the few from the larger volume? Because that value creation can really drive expansion revenues, and it's that can really add the value on top of just keeping your customers better informed through more customizable insights. So just on deployment and architecture, what are the sort of 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many, Ken, things that you think really make us different from solutions which are not designed to be embedded and deployed, that really helps SaaS vendors to get off the ground quickly?
Yeah, so one of the things is we give you control, and I think that's really important these days, especially as we start to do cloud hosting ourselves. You need control of both the software and the cost from that point of view. And the journey that we've been on, we found that it's not cookie cutter. I think I tried to use a phrase and messed it up. So it's not cookie cutter. Everyone's a bit different. So we give people solutions that work on Azure, GCP, and AWS, of course. AWS was the first place we went to. So you see that up on the board there. And really what we allow people to do is to use those in the way that they want to use them, whether it's through containerization, whether it's through AMIs, or whether it's through controlling their own machines. So we even have customers who will have their own Linux machines that they get up and running. And I think Linux is really proud that more Linux machines run on AWS and Azure than actual Windows machines. But we give people the way to do that, but also it's got to be integrated and deeply integrated into the product. So the simplest thing to start thinking about is that sort of single sign-on journey, but also within a multi-tenanted environment, because as we move towards SaaS, things invariably become multi-tenanted. So how do you make sure that people are only seeing what they should be seeing? Obviously very important when it comes to data, because most of the people on your platforms are naturally competing against each other because they do similar things. So that has to be an incredibly important part of the journey, but also look and feel. So if you're going to embed a product in your own application, then almost we're the custodians of your branding. And it's really important that there isn't a jar between that. One, you don't want a visual jar between the two applications. But two, you've worked very hard on your brand presence, and the UI and UX of your own applications. So it has to sit and fit with that. So there's actually, we talk about really the BI, but it's quite a deep pond when it comes to embedding software and reliably embedding it within the applications. I think wrapping around that, which is really, really important, then becomes confidence. And we talk about ourselves being a relationship business first, and really that's where we start and end journey with people. We absolutely start to build relationships that people can trust. We look at your roadmap, customers' roadmaps, as we create our own roadmaps to make sure that we can build, we can deliver, see where you want us to be as well. We don't have all the answers. You have your customers coming to you with requirements, and it's really important that we're able to listen to that.
I think that's a really. I'm trying to create this as a little summary actually, because it was really well articulated, and sometimes we don't do a good enough job of explaining that partnership side of what we do. I mean, all we do is work with SaaS vendors, embedding our technology inside their VPC, wherever that might be, in a deployment architecture that fits with their own deployment models, seamlessly integrated on security, like with whatever authentication layer is required to ensure that every user only sees what they want to see, but also working with them on making sure that styling and how it looks and feels. And there is a standard style sheeting in our product, so you don't have to be able to write CSS in order to be able to do it. So you can have multiple style sheets for multiple customers if you like. It really doesn't matter. And from an accessibility point of view, style sheets for people that have visual impairment, that maybe are colorblind. So the flexibility isn't just about branding, it's also about accessibility and considerations for different types of users, different roles, which all can be authenticated easily. But that partnership is key, because we only work with SaaS vendors on embedding. We prioritize not just the front end simplicity and capability of accessing data insights in a more self-service way, keeping them in your platform, but we make sure there's a real attention paid to that integration, scaling, and third-party integrations to other technologies, such as standard database drivers for the latest database technologies like a Snowflake or a Firebolt or a Redshift, as well as supporting other more, Postgres, SQL, Oracle, whatever we might need, whatever you're using, and different types of deployment architectures, as Ken said. So there's a lot of thinking that goes into that side of things. The way in which we work from a metering point of view is that all of our partners, it's aligned to their usage and unit metrics of us in them, which means as they grow, the unit metrics are absolutely aligned to that growth, and therefore can be monitored, forecasted out in a way that it reflects the kind of value that is we are within your platform, number one. So we completely align to that model, and that means that it is a we win when you win approach. So value sharing in that value creation, and making sure that early entry point for all of our partners is accessible, and it doesn't limit those kind of smaller, high growth, early stage SaaS vendors from really adopting the best embedded analytics technology that they can. So we're really proud of that. But actually, value creation for you as an organization around building in expansion revenues is equally as important. So the fact that you're able to switch on a low level sort of customizable dashboarding experience for all your customers, but give them a kind of pathway of expansion, or added functionality that can be switched on as they grow through your own bandings, customizable reports, machine learning, predictive analytics, could be stages or paths or roles that you switch on and drive value from to move your customers on a journey through your own product and your own product's value. So we can be part of that value creation for you to make sure that you're moving your customers on that expansion journey. And we know how to do that. We have licensing and models around that to support. So we get it, we get value creation, and we get sharing in that together, and happy to talk through that with anybody that's on this call today in a bit more detail to help explain it. The time is to just show you the technology and give you a bit more of an experience of everything we've talked about. So Ken's going to share his screen, and he's going to talk you through the kind of front-end experience that's self-service, customizable, helping them to make it easy to build what they need for themselves. So we talked about that, people that are at the front line being able to get what they need when they need it, without having to pull the data out. And then we'll jump into some of the deployment stuff that we've talked about. So I'm going to leave it to you.
Absolutely. So this is the dashboard. This is an example. It's in our branded colors here. One of the key elements we're talking about was the ability to use the product in a really, really simple way. So I'm going to give you a very quick demo today. Obviously, if you want a more in-depth demo or something that talks more to the sort of data that you have or how you use the dashboard, then please do get in touch with us. We're happy to, sort of do a bit more of a one-to-one deep dive on exactly what this would mean to you. But essentially within here, the dashboard has to be super easy to use. So I'm looking at some human resources data here. I can see various aspects. So, who's traveling. I can click on an element within a dashboard and I can drill to the underlying data. I can very simply within Panintelligence take that out as a Word document, an Excel document, PDF, or as we were talking about, we can actually kick this out as a schedule, so to alert people, either as a single item or as a full multi-page item where you can pick these elements out here. So our product has a complete scheduler built into here, and that allows us to sort of build that content, burst it out, and also do things like put data watchers on the data within here. But we'll concentrate on the dashboard side of things for now. One of the key things that people are likely to want to do is to filter and sort data. And again, this is really, really straightforward within Panintelligence. So I might want to filter just by dragging out an area or clicking on a legend item to have a look at the data in greater detail. Or as I did before, click to drill into the data. And all of these representations will do exactly the same. So I can click to drill, drag down, and then drill to the underlying detail. You'll notice most of my charts tend to finish with a data table. They don't have to start with a table, a chart. They can start with a table or go whichever way you want. But really, really simple ways of analyzing the data. Up on this right-hand side here, we have page level filters as well. So maybe I want to zoom in on 18 to 25 and 26 to 30-year-olds. Maybe I just want to have a look at one or two departments. So let's bring in research and development and sales, and say I only want to have a look at people who've been with us at least 3 years at this stage. So clicking apply on that will now filter everything on the page. But you can also use charts themselves as filter items. So if I want to just have a look at research scientists across this section of data, I can just select that block, or equally I can just have a look at healthcare representatives and have a look there. Everything on the page is then filtering and adapting. Really simply as well, if I want to take that out and drop that back to the top, I can just refresh my page. But as Zandra said, one of the key aspects of Panintelligence, and probably about 80% of our customers use this in an embedded mode. And to do that is really, really straightforward. So each one of these chart elements within here has a published URL. Now, everything in the dashboard can be embedded either as a single component, or it could be embedded as an entire dashboard. And actually what I'm going to do here is just go to a new page, and just to show you exactly what this would kind of look like, I can drop that tree map onto this page, and it will render in all of the available space. And actually, if I was on a smaller screen or I had a smaller area that value would be in, you can see us behind there. You can have that value in there. And in embedded mode, the charts work in exactly the same way as they do within the main dashboard. So it's really simple and easy to go and integrate us from that point of view. One of the other key aspects of sort of self-service dashboarding or any kind of BI is the ability to take this further. So when we're talking about being able to bend this to your own business or your business processes, actually, if I'm a designer user, so I'm going to go to the sort of next level in Panintelligence here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to put some more content on the page for myself. So I've had a little chart cell down in the bottom left. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to drop that page off there just to give myself a little bit more space. But I can kind of configure the dashboard however I want here. And I could add as many cells onto the page as I want to. And then I've got two options. I can either go into the chart library and grab something that is already existing and just drop it onto the page, and it will drop onto the page and it'll start to work straight out of the trap. Or, as I'm going to do in a second, go and create a brand new element. Now, the way most of our partnerships work is they'll create a set of static dashboards that are delivered out of the box. So they will cover 80% of the use cases and then allow people to go and create the extra use cases for them. Because what we found, particularly with business intelligence, is people want a nice, clean, easy starting point, but also they need something to get them going as well. And the beauty of Teams is someone has just decided to call me on Teams. So I don't know whether you all find these things with remote working, but actually, funnily enough, we've all become a little bit more available to everybody whilst we've been remote. So I'll just silence Teams there. What I'm going to do here in this chart cell is, rather than just use this pre-canned element, I'm going to go on and I'm going to hit the little plus, and this brings me into the configuration tool. And this is where I can decide to build whatever I want. And what I'm actually going to do is, on that HR database, I'm just going to start to explore the data. So I'm going to go into here and have a look at attrition. So attrition may be a problem in this fictitious HR company. So I'm wanting to try and find out what's going on here. So I can have a look at this by age group, or I could start to explore it by business travel, or by how happy they are within the environment. I can then bring in alternative items in here as well. So maybe I want to have a look at environmental satisfaction versus age group. I was with attrition there, but it doesn't have to be attrition. I can look at my overall pupil count or person count within here. And then I can start to either change the visualization within here. So maybe I want to use an entirely different type of visualization, or maybe I also want to create a drill path behind here. And drilling through the data is really, really simple. So, maybe I'm going from there to department. Looks a little bit daft as a line chart. So let's turn that into, let's go with a donut chart. I want to make things look a little bit nicer. I can then start to play around with exactly how this is displayed. And maybe I'm going to put a few items on there. I'm going to drill down further. And there's a couple of really special ways we can drill. So we can include things like iframe elements. You can do what we call application chaining. So I could drill out to an external application. You can create rule-based drilling. So it doesn't just have to be linear, depending on what the user clicks on. They'll get to see different data. And you can actually use it as a full navigation point. So when I click on one element, maybe I want to go to an entirely different page, which expresses that data in a really, really complex way. But what I'm actually going to do is just drill to a data table here. And in this case, I'm going to drill down and I'm going to put the employee's name on there. So we'll find out who that person actually is. Let's bring in some measures in here. So let's have a look at the attrition. Let's have a look at their salary hike, and let's have a look at how far they travel into work. And let's go and make this really nice. We'll pivot that around gender. So we can now have what we call a crosstab, but you'd call sort of a pivoted table in something like Excel. When I'm happy with that, I just give it a name. So I'm going to call it Ken so I can find it, save that, and it's now a chart that will start to work. So if I go full screen on this chart, I can start to filter the item. So I can click on the little filter items. I can click down, drill into the detail, and in this case, drill down to the underlying detail. And again, at any point, I can take that and kick that out as a Word, Excel, PDF, CSV. And actually on this month's release, we've been testing it upstairs. You can now kick that out to a PowerPoint as well directly. So coming really, really soon to Panintelligence near you is PowerPoint exports too, which is going to be really, really neat.
So just a quick question, and I know the answer, but when people are building, how's it applying their security?
Yeah, so obviously we need to make sure, especially in these multi-tenanted environments, that people are seeing only the data that they're allowed to see. Now, the sneaky thing about Panintelligence is there's a few ways of doing this because we work with different sort of platforms. But at its simplest, I've got some users set up in here. And note here as well, we don't have like a desktop client that you're publishing out to. A lot of legacy BI providers have gone to the web, but they still have the desktop client. And we find that's a real blocker for those domain experts because suddenly those tools are held by the tech teams. So within here, I just go into the spanner or wrench, and I can have a look at any of my users. And I've got a user in here called Adil Miller. And Adil Miller has got a user restriction on him, which is in this case limiting him only to have a look at the research and development department. And I can see all three of these users are configured in a slightly different way. So Ellen Jones is also limited within here. Now that's one way of limiting this. Now actually you can limit this either in the software or a database layer or a combination of both. And all of this is controllable through our API as well. So where we talk about syncing this up, single sign-on, all of those sorts of things, you don't even have to use our own sort of security model from that. You can integrate it with your own.
So it doesn't matter whether they're building a chart, consuming a chart, receiving a report. In all of those different roles and ways you can give a user whatever level of permission, they're always being restricted on what they can and can't do and can and can't see. So you can give them full customizable access, but if they're only allowed to see certain customers or certain transactions or certain products, they're only ever going to see that as they build and as they consume.
Absolutely. Okay. They can be as clever as they think they are. they will not get around that security. And that comes a little bit from our heritage. So we actually started off in the financial services industry. So data was very, very important to be secure. But actually, through our journey, as we've moved into sectors like education, that data is incredibly sensitive, and we have to make sure that no one can ever see that. Another really important aspect, you're probably going to ask me this.
It's all right, go.
I bet we're both going to auditing there.
Automatically.
So, we both see this tool quite a lot, as you can imagine. And essentially what we also do is maintain a complete audit trail of everything that the user's seen. And that goes all the way down to not only timings, but just exactly what they've clicked on and what filters they've got applied within there. And because that data's held, there's actually just an internal dashboard in here, which allows us to go and model and see exactly what's going on in here. And because it's a dashboard, we can actually then go take this further and create our own versions of this.
And this is really useful for SaaS vendors because engagement in your platform is incredibly important to understand. And this will show you what dashboards, reports are being used by who, with what frequency. And if people are always drilling down on a particular chart and therefore getting to a transaction layer or also detail layer, it's, well, actually, maybe we just need to be creating that as a view that people have got so that they're not having to do that. We're removing that need for that extra click. So it's a really brilliant way to get the kind of customer voice and feedback loop as to, how useful are these things, how much are people engaging with them, and also what roles are engaging, because we might think it's going to be a certain type of role in our SaaS platform that's going to use a certain type of functionality, and it surprises us by showing us perhaps other types of users and gives us a really good feedback loop on data usage and the types of information that our customers are looking for. So it can be really valuable to a SaaS vendor from that point of view. Sorry, I jumped to security and made you jump in, but I'm just wondering, I think there are two things before we log off, because I know we've only got a few more minutes left. It'd be really good to just show people, because I know we've got product people on this call joining today. How do we connect to data? Because that's always a question people are interested in. Are we moving data here? What's happening with data? And then lastly, just showing them that kind of predictive modeling bit, which is key to us.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump back into the wrench for a second, and we'll have a quick look at data connections. And for those of you who are as old as me, you remember Blue Peter. So here's one I created earlier. And essentially, we are big believers in databases. So in this case, I'm actually connected to a database called MariaDB. Now, we use JDBC and we talk SQL to the database, two formats which are actually allow us to connect to lots and lots of different data sources within here. More typically, and certainly on the SaaS journey, we're seeing the rise of cloud data sources. So BigQuery, Snowflake, Azure, AWS into Redshift, things like that. And we connect to those natively. And actually, another problem that many other vendors have is they'll take that data which is moved once and then move it again. So we have a big thing about data's increasing. Actually, a lot of data is being replicated. And certainly on the cloud journey, you're paying for that data. So trying to make sure that we do whatever combination of enhancement of the data and getting it into the right format, but using the best of breed data storages and data warehouses. And where we're saying at the beginning, data warehouses have never been more important. This is absolutely true in this case as well. And essentially, we're going to query that directly. And it also means that once we build that data warehouse, it's really quick and easy to build within here. So my consultants often complain to me that they don't spend very much time in our tool. They spend a lot of time in the database trying to work out what's going on. And that's because we try to make this part of the journey as easy as it possibly can be. Just going to clean off my warning message. Don't know how I generated that, but click on there. And I've got these objects in here. I've now got the table. I would create the joins and definitions. And these are the things that I was picking, these objects They were the dimensions and measures I was picking when I was building the chart. And actually, it can be really simple fetches, or you can build in anything that you can build in SQL in there. And again, that's why we use SQL, because it's not having to learn a new language. It's using something that's in there. And most importantly, from a technical point of view, when we do this within the SQL, we aggregate within the database. So we're never pulling out more data than we need. Really important from a querying, where you're often paying per transaction these days, and the size of those transactions. We aggregate within the database, and we only ever pull out what we're going to display. And again, from a security point of view, the data stays where it is. So obsessively, to answer the question, we never move data.
So data in place. So if you've done a really hard job of getting your data into an environment that you don't want to move that again for the purposes of reporting, the purposes of analytics, we're perfect, because we're absolutely designed for querying data where it sits.
Yep.
Because we came from banking, we were dealing with really high volume transactional environments, and we had to do it live.
Yep.
Don't move our data, because the network security guys will say no. And actually, they've got so much of it, we can't afford to move it, and we can't afford to store it again just for the purposes of reporting. So that's been where we've grown up. So we really get it. We get kind of querying performantly existing data store and using the best of the data architecture that exists in databases. Yeah. So I'm conscious we've probably got a few minutes. Styling is something that we haven't really covered, but just quickly, you can make the dashboard look as pretty or as not pretty. I don't like black dashboards. I never have. It's very techy, and I'm much more on the sales side of things. So I like them to look all white and simple.
So we can go back really quickly.
Yeah. So, but we can make it look and feel. Here's a partner of ours that is an ETL provider. Actually, they're a great company for looking at ways of bringing other cloud data sets into enrich your existing data, especially when we go on to machine learning in a second. But this is a provider that, it's been reskinned to look and feel just like their brand and their organization. But yeah, if you're looking for enriching existing data sets, that you've got more data to be able to build predictive models over, check out Clean.ai. They've got a whole range of cloud connectors. Think Stitch or Monopoly or Fivetrans, those kind of companies, all partners of ours. But yeah, just as an example. So lastly then, machine learning. So can you really do self-service machine learning? We get a lot of people going, really, predictive modeling? Can people that are not a data scientist, that are not, a data analyst, that are not a BI person, can they really build a model, understand the model, and make use of it?
Yeah, and I'm going to argue the case right now that those people are the best people placed to understand the value of a model and therefore what it can be used. And I won't go into would you eat the mushroom sample. You can see that video on the web, and really that's the question. How much would you trust this? And I would throw this on its head as well a little bit. So if I look at this data set here in human resources, I can see that I've got a staff attrition level of 16%. Now, I can take you on a grand game of hide and seek now to try and see where the problem lies. And actually, we'll find the problem lies across many dimensions. And really, the problem is the fact that the world's a little bit more complicated than we've actually pretended it is for a long time. Yeah. Staff attrition isn't just happening because people live too far away from work, or staff attrition isn't happening because we haven't given people the relevant bonus. They're kind of complex scenarios that sit behind that. So what we have within the product, and what I should have actually mentioned at the beginning here, this is our TryPy site. So if you went to our website, there's a Play Now button. You can go in and create your own environment and play with this to your heart's content within here.
Top right, I think it says TryPy. Click on it, and it'll give you an environment for you for 24 hours, and everything you're seeing is in that, so you can play with it.
And I'll just take off the filter panel on there just to give myself a little bit more space. So this is the analytics side of the dashboard here. And essentially what we've done is we've asked it exactly the same question. So we've fed through the data and we've said, okay, so what's going on with staff attrition? And rather than us preempting, we've just gone, okay, here's all the data we've got. Here's the characteristics. You tell me where the most significant problems lie. And actually what it's done is it's looked across all of these characteristics for us. And you can see here, we've got the 16% leave rate. So yes, people did leave. So it's exactly the same data set we've seen before. But I don't have to do any work here. It's telling me straight away here the most significant characteristic is whether our employees are doing overtime or not. And this is where the domain experts become really, really important because they might just go, yeah, tell us something we don't know, or they might go, "Ooh, I'm not sure about that." But actually, when you start to follow the tree down here, it'll start to tell you more, and it actually tells you how these characteristics interact. So from our overall leave rate of 16%, it doesn't take us very long to get to a node here where we've actually got a leave rate closer to 53%. So a really, really significant jump up. And we can see from the Sankey how many observed characteristics fell into this. So how many employees fell into this within the observation period. And it's actually 156 staff members. So it's not an insignificant number of people. And it's where they're doing overtime and where their job level is 1. Now, I won't go in and analyze this data set for you because this is not your data. It is a real data set. It's just obfuscated because we find we have to use real data for these sorts of examples. But the way we've built this is exactly the same way we've built a chart. And behind the scenes, we're using Python. If you go to little information buttons, it will show you exactly how we built that model because we want to be really transparent with what we've done. But essentially within here, I've just given it my employee ID as a characteristic, and that's my identifier. I could use employee name if I wanted to in there. And I've got my attrition in here as the objective. And then you'll see the number of characteristics. And if you could imagine a number of charts you'd have to build just to look at that at one level and not even at an interaction level, that's why we say it's like a grand game of hide and seek. But in this case, all you do is hit build button. And if I wanted to take things out or remove them, it's just a plus or a minus on there.
So this really visualizes what a model is doing. But actually, I think every time we put this in front of people, they get it and they start to ask, well, who are those people? Who are those transactions? And like a chart, you can literally drill on the nodes and literally see to validate who's behind it. So it can just help to tell stories straight. It's not just about a data scientist in a room building something and coming back and saying that's the most significant reason. And then people go, yeah, well, we know that. Tell us something we don't know.
Yep.
They can interact with this live dynamically. They can go and validate it by looking at what sits behind it. And actually, you can kind of turn people into data scientists in minutes, really. They can suddenly understand what models are doing, the fact that it's bringing these things together. And it starts a conversation, doesn't it? It really does start a conversation,
And a model is an interesting thing because it involves a bit of mathematics. And the mathematics is regression. Now, that's quite a complex area of mathematical skill. But by productionizing and toolizing this, we're able to bring different people in. And actually, what we find here is exactly as you're saying, where we're able to then drill down to who those people are, is you'll look at this and you'll work out how good the model is. So you'll drill down to a list of people who indicated that they probably will leave, or there's a high probability. You can go down that list. And if you find everyone in there, because you'll know who they are, won't leave, you're kind of like, well, this model's not very good. So you'll then go, and actually what happens with the domain experts is they'll tell you instantly why the model isn't very good, and they're addressing new characteristics for you. So an example we did was with education a little while ago. So we built a model looking at sixth form students who was likely to be retained, and it was obviously with COVID, it was very, very sensitive what was going on within there. And the first thing that popped out was distance from college. And the second thing that popped out was their attendance to the library. And these two characteristics were really, really significant. But instantly the people in the room said, well, I bet there's a subset within the distance from college because there's a train station right beside the college. And we were thinking, yes, that's how we got here today. And the kids who were coming on the train, they had a really consistent, easy journey into college. So they were quite happy. Whereas the kids coming to college on the bus, and this was a huge college in Surrey. There's about 5,000 students per annum in there. And those guys coming on the bus, sometimes it would be taking 20 minutes, but sometimes it would be taking them an hour and a half. And they're finding a huge drop off on the number of students who are dropping out based on the bus. But instantly it starts to tell them how to go and apply that. Now, what this can then do is we can go further than this in that we can save this model, and it creates these two crystal balls for us. And the crystal balls are now where we can look at another subset of data just by building a dashboard. So again, a little bit Blue Peter, I've built one previously. And what I'm now doing is I'm picking out the current staff members who are predicted to leave, and there's a greater than a 70% probability. And actually out of my 1,500 staff members, it's saying, well, there's these 5 people that you probably should be concerned about. And this is where we can drive the decision. And it's kind of like a holy trinity in Panintelligence, in that I can now take that and schedule that. And that brings us back to where we were at the beginning of this presentation, almost as if I'd planned this, Zandra. But we can now take this and we can split this. And if you remember these different people within here, they were the department leads and they can only see certain departments. We've got a data watcher on here, so it means it's going to run it in the image of each one of those. And only if those department heads have someone who's got a high probability of leaving, will it send information to them. So it's not noisy. It just sends the information very targeted. And we've got this set up to go Monday morning, every 8 o'clock every Monday morning. But then even more exciting, well, for me, if you're as nerdy as me, you can actually hook this up to a web service. So why not hook this up to a web service for the HR app to book that employee a one-to-one automatically with their manager? So we're now moving from the ML journey into a true automated journey where we can do this. All of this is surfaced through our API as well. So you can start to use us as a decisioning engine. And I'm sad enough to have a little robot whiteboard back at my house. I had to put it in my house because I upset everyone here. But essentially, every ticket that comes through our Zendesk, we score. And I'm scoring based on the tickets which are likely to have more than 10 touches. So which tickets are going to be the problematic one? And as soon as a ticket which is predicted to have a high degree of touches on there, it writes it on my whiteboard. And I know there's something that I need to go and pick up and have a look at. And if you think I'm talking nonsense, trust me, I've got a whiteboard with a little robot that writes things on to direct me. And that's the idea really of ML. You're trying to live towards automation, helping people. Stop this hide and seek, stop waiting for something to happen. And it's beyond just nudge technology. It's actually telling us to do something about this.
And then I think that's where we really, really stand differently from anything else that you may consider, whether that is a charting library or maybe another tool like, our competitors who, do maybe one of these three things. So Tableau, Looker that do data visualization, Sisense that do an element of reporting, but none of them have this kind of machine learning capability that allows you to, basically tell people things that are likely to happen based on something they care about so that they can take action by giving them that information in their inbox or alerting them when they need to hear it. And that's the real power. Like you say, no more hide and seek. And I think that sort of probably wraps us up a bit. But knowing that there's a number of different industries on the call, I was just reflecting on some of our own SaaS customers now. I think we've got somebody that is from health and safety on the call, and we do have a SaaS vendor in health and safety that's predicting, is doing things around accident prediction on construction sites. From e-commerce platforms, I know we've got somebody in e-commerce. We've got a provider that is predicting the most likely loyalty intervention that will result in a customer spending more on their platform by giving them the right kind of incentive. We've got fintech people on the call today. A really great example from where we came from is predicting the people that are most likely to default on a loan. So making sure that those people that we are going to offer a loan to or financing to or not, and those people that sit in that grey zone are getting sent to underwriters and using those resources for making those decisions effectively. And then we have a communications platform. And again, we have a number of providers in marcoms and communications, people that are predicting the campaigns that are most likely to result in opportunity, leads, engagement based on historical data. So we've got a whole load of examples. It's not just about data visualization. It's not just about enhancing that customer experience and keeping them in your platform. You can create really value driving data engagements that take the data that you've already got and turn it into much higher value insights, like predictions, like exceptions, alerts, notifications that can really drive people's behaviors, activity, and decisions to really change how their organizations operate and actually may deliver much better results for your customers. And that's how you keep them happy and sticky. If your platform is constantly telling them something they wouldn't have known if you hadn't have told them it, they're going to want to keep that switched on. So please, if this has been of any interest to you at all today, if you've learned anything or you just want to say, great, I learned a lot, thanks for that, please drop us a note, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, however you find out about this, or reach out to Ken and myself. We'd really love to speak to you, deep dive into what you're trying to do, the use cases of your platforms and products, share with you some more tailored stories. And obviously give you access to the software so you can road test this for yourself than us just showing you it. So please do reach out. You'll find us both on LinkedIn. So Zandra Moore, Ken Miller. LinkedIn's a great way to get in touch, and we'll be sure to get back to you. So thank you so much for staying with us for the duration, and we both look forward to picking up and finding out more about what you're trying to achieve. Have a really good day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
And now the awkward bit where you stop the